Let's bring in former FBI special agent and Navy SEAL Jonathan Gilliam. Jonathan, we are still less than 24 hours from this shooting. What are investigators doing literally as we speak right now?
Well, right now they're probably combing through the evidence to try to figure out what the motivation was here. But with somebody who has mental illness, you're not the motivation may be completely unbased or based in false reality. So, when you have these types of attacks, the investigation is really to put the pieces together. It's also, of course, to find out if there was any other association with anybody who may have helped plan this and where the guns came from and so on and so forth, the details of the investigation. But unfortunately, in a situation like this, it's really just putting the pieces together for the families and so they can close this case. There's not going to be anything that comes out of this as far as prosecution goes.
Yeah, I mean, and that leaves the question, who's going to be held responsible as far as getting justice for these lives lost and these families that are affected. I understand the manifesto is going to be key in trying to put the pieces together in this plot that was planned by this person. But, you know, Jonathan, I want to go to these text messages because this shooter, a friend of the shooter, said that she had reached out that morning saying that she was going to die today. There's a couple of ways this can go, but I want to go this route. You know, she said, you're probably going to hear this on the news after I die. How much of a role does the media play in this? Obviously, we have to cover it, but it was really troublesome to see that she said, you're going to see this on the news.
Right. Well, so, you know, this is the reality with this is that these people that are doing these types of overt actions are typically either trying to show that they are dominant, which we've seen in the case of many of the people before, or they have a no longer have the will to live, and they want to force someone else to kill them. But in some of these cases, such as these where there's mass shooting going on, I think there's much deeper issues going on here. And the hatred, they have a hatred. At some point, they have confusion in their mind. And not only do they want to die, but there's something in there that is also pushing them to kill others. And I have to tell you, this is not just a tragedy. This is something that we're seeing reoccurring. I was doing my research to come on here, and it is a fact that the majority of school shooters and mass shooters that we've had in the recent history in this nation are all people who have sexual identity dysfunctions. And the medical industry will no longer diagnose people with these dysfunctions. They now classify these people as having medical conditions. And this is a problem because people are growing up playing video games, which this person was a video game fanatic. They do not understand who they are or what their gender or sexuality is because of the way that society has changed. I'm reading the stories that are out in the media, and I can't even tell if this person was a transgender male or transgender woman. It's being reported that it was a woman, but when the police actually put out the press notifications, they were saying that they identified this person from their car and calling them a male. But when you go to LinkedIn, it's saying that it's a he, or a he, him. So there's such confusion in people now that we have psychological issues that are just beyond schizophrenic, and we're supporting these things, and it's causing mass confusion to the point that people are going out and killing. Until we start looking at this for the reality of what it is, we are going to continue to have these types of attacks.
There are so many questions, to your point, Jonathan, that experts really need to provide us answers on, and they need to get in the trenches with these individuals to give those individuals answers, to give them help. You heard Congressman Burchett's comment there in Jackie Ibanez's piece. I think that is so crucial at a time right now. It's not about demonizing certain segments of our society. We are all humans. It's about getting our fellow humans the help that they need. And speaking of help, I want to dive into the text message that Ashley raised to you. That teammate also alleged that she called authorities to let them know about this potentially dangerous situation. Somebody saying that they were going to kill themselves. There it is on your screen. Planning to die today is the exact reference. But when she called the authorities, she felt she wasn't getting a fair amount of urgency from those authorities. Your thoughts on that? And I do want to be extremely clear when I distinguish the authorities that I'm referencing now from the individuals who went inside that building and saved countless lives by their quick and heroic actions. I'm talking about the people that this basketball teammate first contacted about a perilous situation.
So here's the reality, Todd, is that we have a thing that I didn't come up with this term, but I think is an excellent term here, where we have institutional inbreeding. So we're looking at tactics, techniques, and procedures that law enforcement uses that are outdated. We've seen multiple times where there's been mass shooters and law enforcement has pulled responding officers out of the building, out of the shootout where they're pressing forward in order to put a hostage negotiator or a SWAT team. And in that time, many, many people are killed. It's the same thing here. Law enforcement has to change when the attackers change, and that is not occurring. Attackers are changing in their tactics and evolving, and law enforcement is not evolving. And I want to say this one other thing about what I was saying before is that we see that there's ideological beliefs that people have, but now there's ideological demands. And when we demand that young people look at themselves in certain ways, when we demand that law enforcement react in certain ways, those things may be based in something that is not reality. And we need to start looking at truth. We need to start asking, what's going on here and what tactics do we use now in these cases. And all of that is something that if we want to solve these issues, if we want to have better response times and we want to save lives, we're going to have to look at this whole issue as a society and law enforcement and mental health. We're going to have to look at it totally different. We have seen in COVID that doctors in the medical industry are looking at health issues now based on politics. And I believe that's the problem that we have here, whether it's mental health, sexual identity, or tactics, techniques, and procedures. They are looking at these things from a political standpoint, not a solution standpoint. And that's the biggest problem that we have.
And 6 beautiful lives are now gone, 3 of them 9-year-old children because of it. And it's sad. Jonathan, thank you for your time this morning. Appreciate it.